Oh, my pretty awkward fam. Happy Heart to Heart Friday, or I just sounded like a boy going through puberty. Friday, or whenever you're listening to this. I'm actually recording this on a Sunday, the Sunday before you're going to hear it, because I had two reasons. I had a pretty epic journaling session, and I was like, I just need to make this an episode. This is the heart to heart this week, and something I've just been kind of talking about for a bit, but feels really solidified now. And I just really want to share with you. These episodes really are behind the scenes in real time. What's going on? Like, come along this journey with me. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes we wait to share until we are ready to, if the mess is a little too messy. That's just a tip for anyone who's in it. I'm a big believer in, I've said this before, sharing from the scar, not the wound. But these episodes are a little bit more like, hey, this is what's going on this week. So if you're new here, you're really getting a very in real time, behind the scenes, 99% of the time. So it's something that I was like journaling about, that I was like, I just feel so clear, and I want to share that with my people because it's very exciting. And I'm recording a podcast episode today with a really dear friend and past client. She records on Sunday. So I was like, all right, I'm already recording one. Let's do this one today because I'm feeling it. I really love getting creative work done on the weekends. And I know I've talked about that, but if you're new here, it is definitely something that I am such a fan of. Like, there's uninterrupted time. Especially if you're a coach or you have lots of clients, which I do, and I love, love, love them. I want to give a lot of my mind space and energy during the week to those clients. So I find that I'd rather have shorter work days and have some work on the weekends that is just like fully me. Now, once I have kids, this might change. It's just how my life is right now. And there's some weekends, if I'm traveling or if I have friends or family visiting, obviously I change that around, but I love it. I love it. I get so much done. I am like, whoa, I can do so much more in such a short amount of time. And like yesterday, I did about 3 hours worth of work and I got a ton done. And then I had the rest of my day. I went to see Avatar with my dad, longest movie ever, but I really enjoyed it. For quick side before we dive into today's topic, but I really enjoyed it. I was kind of going in with low expectations though, because I had a couple very trusted friends who were like, the plot's kind of bleh. And I mean, the first one too, if you saw Avatar, I personally it's not like the best plot or the best script or anything. It's more the visuals and like the emotions it makes you feel. And I really enjoyed it. My dad and I had so much fun. It was his second time seeing it. So I saw that yesterday. Friday went over, I spent the whole weekend pretty much with him and watched a corny Hallmark movie, made him dinner. And today watching a football game with my husband and just hanging out and relaxing after doing some recording. So it's kind of a half work, half fun weekend, but I'm loving it. Like, I'm really, and this ties perfectly into what I want to talk about today, is when you start to get those butterflies in your stomach about what you're doing and you can't stop thinking about it, but in a healthy way, not in a, oh my gosh, I'm at dinner and I'm stressing about work. That's not what I'm talking about. But like, you're really excited about a project, you're excited about a launch, you're excited about your next steps or your clients or what you're doing. You feel really clear, you have the right direction, all of that. When that starts to happen, you want to work, you get excited to work, especially if you like it. I love working. I really, really do. I love working when I'm excited. I am a generator in human design, and that's been a huge thing. I've gotten a couple of readings done, and that's been one of the biggest things I've been told is like, if you are excited about something, you need to go and do it. But if it's not a hell yes, and if you're kind of wishy-washy, you're like going to be forcing yourself. And man, in the past few years, I've had so many of both of these moments, some of like such clarity of, this is my journey. This is exactly what I meant to do. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And then I've had those, and I've been like wanting to work nonstop, right? Like wanting to work weekends, wanting to work all the time. Not in an unhealthy way, but in it, like, I'm so excited. I want to work on this, right? Versus I've had a lot of seasons in the last few years where I'm like, I don't want to do anything. I want to literally stay in bed. I want to watch Netflix all day. And, of course, even when you're excited, you're going to have those days, but few and far. Oh my gosh, what's that phrase? Few and far between. I'm butchering that. You know what I'm trying to say here. You know me and my phrases. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, they're all over the place. I butcher them, but I do my best. I do my best. I should have a book of the phrases Megan has butchered, but the sentiment is there because there's a lot. but few and far between. That's it. I'm fairly confident that that's it. And in those moments that I wasn't feeling it for a long stretch, it was just like, when I look back, it's because I wasn't sure where I was supposed to be going or what I was supposed to be doing. And I was kind of just doing things because either my audience wanted it, or it's something I've done before, so I knew how to do it, or it's like comes easy to me, but it didn't feel like a challenge, or it just felt like blah. And I wasn't excited about it, right? Either because it didn't feel clear, or it wasn't a challenge. And in those moments, like I showed up, and when I show up fully, and I'm always going to deliver to my people, but it didn't have the same gusto, right? As those moments where I'm like, this is it. This is it. And a huge reason, I think, in the past few years, and this is where what I want to talk about, like really today, is I got so distracted by what other people were doing. And I talked to one of my really good friends and former clients. Pretty much all my clients I've become pretty good friends with, but there's a select few who've become like some of my closest friends, and I just adore them. And I was talking to one of them. We were updating each other and catching up in Voxer. And I love it because we can speed up our voice messages. We always do that. And we were talking about how both of us went through this. We both went through this where we kind of got distracted by what other people were doing. And my mentor, my current mentor in the mastermind I'm in, was talking about this too, and saying how like it's so easy, and she experienced this as well, to get sidetracked or get distracted because your peers are doing something or different, and they're up leveling, or they're working with a different type of client, or they're doing bigger and better things, right? And so you go, oh, I have to too. And your definition of bigger and better becomes totally different. It's got to be very different. It's got to be with a different type of client. It's got to be a totally different program. It's got to be a totally different setup. When really bigger and better for you can be what you're doing at a bigger level, can be more enrollment, can be switching from just live launching something to evergreen and having more people come in throughout the year, could be adding a live event component to your program. It doesn't mean that you have to totally scrap what you were doing, totally repackage it, and then launch it with a new name or a new ideal client, or totally stop working with one kind of client and work with another one. Sometimes that's going to be the case, but this is why I'm such a big believer when you are remodeling your business, to not tear down everything. Don't burn everything to the ground. I think that's such a big phrase that people say, is like, I'm burning my business to the ground. I don't really know anyone who needs to do that. You have, especially if you've had success in your business, if you're just starting, that's different, right? If you're just starting, you're building that foundation, you're in those beginning stages, which, by the way, if you are just starting, we're going to talk about this. I have a lot of stuff coming for you, like a lot. So make sure you pay attention to everything. Make sure you're watching my TikToks. Make sure you're watching my Instagram stories. Make sure you're watching my Instagram feed, opening up emails. Like, we got a lot of really juicy stuff coming for you. And it's all because I feel like this is the year of going back home, because when I really look at the last 2 years, I had to take a step back for many personal reasons, which I've shared. Obviously, like I've said, if you're new to the podcast, with my husband, we needed to really work on our marriage. I needed to get rid of some things, but that's one thing that was needed. But then I besides that, I was like, okay, so I need to get rid of some of those things, and I need to change around everything. I need to change around so many things, and I didn't need to. And I'm a big believer in the journey we are on. We are meant to be on, and we got here for a reason. We were meant to learn these lessons. So there's zero regrets. But when I look back the last 2 years, I'm like, man, why did I think I needed to change so much stuff? I did not need to change some of these things that were working so well, or so tried and true, that I really loved. I just thought, oh, this is the same, and I'm rinsing and repeating. Whereas my colleagues, my friends, my mentors, people I respect are constantly changing, constantly innovating, constantly putting out new things. That means I need to do that. When really, I just needed to keep making what I had even better. And even better and even better, right? It could be just a refreshed version, but the foundation, the meat, the skeleton, the bones were so good. Why did I feel the need to completely change so much around? And so when I really, like the last few months, it's been a lot of, what do we actually want to do this year? I don't want to just, and I really encourage you. I understand if you're in a stage, it's more of the messy middle stage, probably not someone who's just starting, because you're just starting anyway. So you might not be making much money, if any at all. But if you're in that messy middle stage, or you've had a lot of success, you're very established, but you're like redoing stuff, it is worth it to take a step, take a beat, take a couple weeks, take a month. And if you need to, if you don't have things set up, sacrifice some income for a little bit of time to get clarity on that, to get direction, to figure it out. Because if you just keep like, I'm just visually picturing someone on a hamster wheel, right? And that's what I have felt a few times in the past few years. If you're just on this hamster wheel, just rinsing and repeating, even though it's bringing you in money, if it's not the way you want to bring in money, if it's not the direction you want to go in, if it's not the people you want to work with, if it's not like you're fulfilling your purpose, you feel like you're just like churning stuff out just to make money, then I really urge you to take a beat, sacrifice that for the month. If you can make that happen in some way, to give yourself the space, because man, having this space has been invaluable. It has been so incredible. I cannot even tell you. I just feel so clear on our direction. And I'm going to be sharing that with you today. And I've kind of shared it in the past few months. And it's funny because I think I had a podcast episode like a month ago, maybe. I think I was recording it when I was at my husband's Nana's, and it wasn't the best sound quality, but the direction that we're going this year. And it's pretty much the same with a slight differences. But I feel like this is the year I am coming back home. I'm coming back to where I was before I got distracted, before I thought I had to do things completely 180 differently, right? And the beauty of this is I'm coming back home with so much more knowledge, so many more skills, so much better and more solid expertise because of these skills. Like, I'm better at what I do. I'm better at teaching it. I have adjusted, I've adapted, I've learned, as especially with social media, as things have changed, like how better ways to do things, right? The more you do things, the better you learn. The better you learn, the more you learn, the better you do them, and the more skilled you get, right? So I'm coming back home with all of this elevation, with like all of this, like it's 2.0, and that's really what it feels like. And so a few things that we're coming back home to is coming back home to creating a really solid accelerator program for people in their first few years of business. And this is something that I was very well known for. I had a program called Client Attraction University, then it became Client Attraction Academy. And then I paused it for a while as I reevaluated and I repackaged, and I created my Smart Online Success Academy program. And it was amazing. I loved the students, and it was such a fun year. And we still have some incredible students going through the program right now. We just had a bunch of students join in November. And while I absolutely love it, I realized a couple things with this program. One, you go in with one thought, right? And there's always different perceptions. I went in thinking a year is going to give these people what they need. When you're in your first year of business, like, you need support. You need accountability. You need consistent support. And what I found was a lot of these programs, including mine at the time, that was 3 months. It's like you hit the ground running, and then they're like, now what? And so I wanted to kind of take away that now what. That was my thought, right? And I did, definitely. But what I found is when people have 12 months to complete something, and I gave a lot of curriculum. There were 2 different phases in this program. It was building your foundation and then building your personal brand and really deepening your presence online, becoming known for something, becoming the go-to. That was phase 2. And I gave them all of it, right? Phase 1 and phase 2. And what I realized was, even though they had a year to go through it, it's so much to go through. And there was an urgency because of having a year. Now, of course, you have your outliers, you have your people who will treat it very scheduled just because that's how they operate. But the majority of the people, like, when you have the time, it's just like, if you give yourself an hour, you're going to take an hour to do something. If you give yourself 5 months, you're going to take 5 months to do something. And so what I found was there wasn't as much urgency. And there's 2 things to this. One, I think it was exactly what these students needed last year and what we needed. And I've become actually really, really close with a lot of these students, and they're just such incredible humans. And it was a hard year. And I was like, this program was meant to happen last year because it was such a tough year that they needed that. They needed that support. They needed that like care and that love. And it was amazing. It was incredible. But going into this year, I realize while I want to provide that, I want to provide more length and time, the initial phase, the foundation, there has to be some acceleration. There has to be some urgency to get people going a little bit quicker, right? And that's why the program that I did that was 3 months, it overwhelmed, but man, did it accelerate people. It got them going. They had to. And so what we've decided to do, and you'll be seeing, I'm going to be working on this behind the scenes, my stories, and sharing it. We're revamping it. And we're basically, again, going back home. I'm making it a 4-month program versus 3 for like an implementation month. But the difference this time is there is a built-in continuation. So after the foundation, and it's only going to be the foundation pieces, it's not going to be the deepening brand building, because that's just a whole other level that you need to lock down your foundation first before you can be ready for that. And that's something I realized too. After those first 4 months, and you've locked down your client attraction system, you're signing clients consistently. If you want, you have a built-in continuation option. And so it's kind of like we're keeping that year mentality, but we're not requiring people to commit for a year, and we're giving them the accelerated version in those first few months so that they can really hit the ground running. And honestly, when I look back, that's what it should have been the whole time. It should have still been the accelerator with the accelerated version, with an extension, with the option to continue for support and implementation, right? And that was our whole thought process behind the year commitment. And so you learn, like, there were so many great aspects about that. Like I just said, I think it was the year that the students really needed it because it was tough. And we've just formed such beautiful relationships with these students. Like, again, so many of them are like close friends. I know a lot of them are listening now. I love you. You know who you are. Like, I love every single one of them. And so it was so needed. But I also realized that especially if someone is just starting their business, they really need a shortened timeline to get going, because there's a ton of shit in the beginning of your business, especially, that is really scary to do. There's a lot of stuff that's like, I am so scared. I don't want to take action on this, whether it's going live for the first time, it's putting yourself out there in front of friends and family. Like, that shit's hard. That's really, if you're not new to business, I want to put yourself back there. I bet you were scared shitless. And if you weren't, you're lucky. I performed for a living and I was terrified to go live. I was terrified to put this stuff out. And I literally performed for a living and I was scared to do this stuff. So it's hard. It's really hard. And when you're given too much time, sometimes you will take that time because you're scared to act, right? And you're like, well, I have the time, so I'm just going to do it next month or next month or next month. When you're like, I literally have a specified shortened time frame, I got to like just go for it and messy action. It forces you to do that scary thing. It forces you to like hit the ground freaking running. And there is so much merit to that, right? And so I see the pros and the cons of both, which is why we want to create almost a mold or a merging, if you will, between the two, where it's like, this is the commitment. And then you have a built-in continuation if you want it, right? You can opt out of that, or you can continue on and have that built-in support for your next step. But it's something that like everyone is going to be accelerated. Everyone is going to hit the ground running. Everyone is going to create that client attraction system within those 4 months and leave really, really having something locked in that they can rinse and repeat in 4 months, right? I don't want it to have to take that long. And the thing about it, if we all were self-motivated and we all were self-led and we all could just like show up every day, be so consistent with no accountability and all of that, none of us would have a job. No coach would have a job, right? No mentor would have a job, because we'd just figure it all out. We'd be super motivated. We'd Google all the free stuff. We'd make our own courses from the free stuff that we'd find, right? That's pretty much everyone I know is not like that. Most people, you have your rare occasions. Most people need some like fire. Most people need some urgency, and healthy urgency is good. It's good. It gets you, again, not sitting in fear, not living in fear, not letting that stop you because you have a finite time, right? And so this feels like a beautiful blend of both. So we're working on revamping the curriculum, all of that. My Sosa peeps who are listening, yes, don't worry, you will get the revamped curriculum, of course. But I'm really excited. And I really am just in this phase where I want to kind of come back to things that, again, I loved and I was really great at and worked so well for my students. And this is one, like, it just works so well. And just my style. And this is another aspect of coming back home. And then I'm going to close this up by reading from my journal, because it's like, it's probably gonna make me cry, because what else is new? But another thing about coming back home when you're distracted and you've tried new things, and it's fine to try new things. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But realizing that like you have your strengths and your skills and stuff you're really great at for a reason. And this is why I love things like Enneagram or human design or Myers-Briggs or whatever you want to take, right? There's so many different personality tests. I love my coach approach quiz. Go take that if you haven't. Little shameless plug. It's a free quiz. MeganYelaney.com/quiz gives you which approach that you take to your coaching that you can help market to stand out. And things like that just like help you realize, oh, this is why I do what I do. It's basically an excuse to embrace who you are. Personality quizzes, right? They're so freaking awesome. It gives like, oh, this is why I act this way, or this is why I react this way. There's a reason. This is how I'm built, right? And if we worked with our strengths more instead of fighting against them, oh gosh, how much happier would we be? How much more would we get done, right? Like I remember when I started in network marketing, one of the people who was a big influence in the network marketing company I was in was John Maxwell, and he's big on leadership. And he had a book. I don't remember the name of the book, but something in it was basically like, you need to strengthen your strengths. Like so many people are trying to get really great at things that they suck at and that they hate. And that they're like, I don't want to do this, but they force themselves to get really good at it, versus you're like pretty good at this one thing. And with a little bit of work, you'd be epic at it. That's what you should work on. And that always really stuck with me. And something happened a few years ago where my natural instinct, this has been since I was a little kid. This has been in school. This has been in college. Ask any of my friends from college. I worked hard to play hard. I studied like so diligently. I never pulled all-nighters. I was one of those kids who like had everything structured. Like if I knew I had 8 chapters, I would do 2 a night. I wasn't the last minute, which I know is not common. Most of my friends were the other way, but that's just always how I've been. Like if I do wait till the last minute, if I do things, a lot of my clients are like that. And that's how they work best, honestly. And for me, it's the opposite. I don't put out my best work. I don't work well under pressure where a lot of people do. I actually work better if I give myself the space and the time. And it's why I loved the style of launching that had longer warm-up periods for your audience, or ramp up, or whatever you want to call it, right? I liked that. And I've been doing that since 2000. When was my first launch in that way? Was probably 2016, 17. I did one when I was in my network marketing company. And then I did my first in 2017 when I was in my own health business. And then once I started my business coaching business, like fully in 2018, I was doing a few of those a year. I loved them. They worked so well and they were so structured. And like, I felt so like clear on what I was putting out, clear on what my content was, clear on all of that. And I started to follow these people as I was getting more. And the ironic thing is that got me a lot of success because I was leaning into my strengths. I was leaning into what I was good at. That got me so much success and I loved it. And I got excited about that way of being really organized and setting up like my content pillars and knowing what I was going to do 3 months in advance and all that stuff. And then I started to, meet new people. And as I was getting more successful, be in rooms with all these different people. And a lot of the people I met were very spiritual and very, they operated really in the moment in such a gorgeous way. And I was like, man, I want to do that. I want to become like that. So I tried to like force myself. And I will say in the last few years, especially in the last 6 months, I've really leaned into spirituality, and I'm so glad. Like that's been huge. And it's just, gosh, in the last year, especially, I don't know what I would do if I didn't believe that there was other forces at play because of how much hardships we've had. My faith has been so strengthened because of what we've gone through. I know there's deeper purposes for all this. I know all that. So in that sense, I'm so glad I dove into that because it's really strengthened my faith. But one thing I thought is faith equals being very flowy and being very even I don't even like saying the word flowy because I feel very flowy right now. There's freedom in structure, right? There's flow in structure, but being very last minute and like, oh, don't plan ahead, just let it come to you. Because I had a lot of people in my world who were like incredibly successful and just pumping out things every other week because it just came to them. And I don't work like that. That stresses me out. That's just not my natural instinct. And I tried to force myself to do that. And I stopped like being super structured. Now, personally, I needed to take like a break from launching as frequently, but the way I launched, I loved. Not only did I love it and it was fun for me, I was serving my audience at such a high level because I was literally giving them so much gold. I was giving them so much value that my launches were amazing. My launches crushed it. We had really good launches. We had very big cash injections because people were like, wow, this girl knows what she's doing. I'm ready to invest. And then they had great results. And so it was like, it was a no-brainer for them, which is what you want in a launch, right? Not only that, I built such trust in my audience, and I had so many inquiries for my higher level stuff if I was selling something that was a little bit more beginner, right? Or vice versa, because people saw me being an expert. They saw me putting myself out there. And I got away from that because I thought, oh, well, all of my friends who are like at this level and working towards this next step, they're way more in the moment and fluid. I need to be like that. And I started to like change myself. And not on the outside, but more on the inside. Like I started to pressure myself to do it that way. And it's just kind of funny. Now thinking back, I'm like, why did I do that to myself? That's so silly. So all in all, this year is a coming back home in so many ways. It's a coming back home in some ways, in sense of some of the programs I want to put out, some of the structure of things. I want to go back to some things that I used to do that really worked well, obviously with in an elevated way, because I just know so much. That's why we're redoing a lot of the curriculum. Just to be more up to date. I recommend you doing that, by the way, for your program, unless it's a very like structured program, which never changes. Like you don't need to update it because just the nature of what it is. But I try to do it every 2 years. It's been about 2 years. So I'm like, all right, it's time. Right. And so we're doing that. And also coming back home to the style I love. I love this style. And so my friends, for the next few months, you're going to be getting a crap ton of amazing value. I'm going to be releasing a new freebie. We're going to be doing workshops. We're going to be doing so much great stuff. And two things. One, if you are in the first few years of your business, if you're just starting, or if you've signed clients, but if you're not full-time, you're not bringing in a full-time income yet, pay so close attention, because every single resource I put out, you're going to want to swallow up. It's going to be gold. And then also, if you are more established, pay close attention to see what I do. If you like this style, like literally watch what I'm going to be doing, because I want you to see what's possible. Right. And this is stuff that I've been doing for so many years. And I just feel like I kind of got away from, and I'm just so freaking excited. I have that itch. I'm like, I want to work more. I'm so excited. I want to create. I'm ready to go. I wake up early. I wake up excited. I wake up before my alarm. I don't really set alarms because I don't need to, because I just get excited. And I also have a very structured sleep schedule. I know once I have kids, that's going to go out the window. So I'm taking advantage of it. And that's the last thing I'll leave you with is, this is the year that we really want to start a family. And so when I think about like we've remodeled our business in a way that the programs and the service that I put out there matches the lifestyle I want to have. It matches the types of how much I want to show up, how much I want to be on calls. So everything I'm promoting is so in alignment with that. And the way I want to show up, the way I want to launch, the way I want to put out content, this actually takes so much less energy than things that I was trying to force before. And so it's a coming back home year, but with so much more, like with a lens of way more clarity, way more sophistication, just you know better, you do better kind of thing. So it's like the 2.0 version. So I really encourage yourself, if you've changed a lot of stuff in the last few years, and you're reflecting back and you're like, why did I change this? Was it because I needed to change it? Or did I kind of just need to add a new elevated layer, right? It's a new version, but it's still the same structure. It's just like 2.0. It's okay to go back. It's okay to say, hey, I need to go back to that, or I need to like go back to those basics and then add on a new layer. It's like a foundation of a house, right? You have your foundation, you want to add a sunroom, or you want to repaint the walls, or you want to add some new furniture. You're not ripping apart the room. You're not like pummeling the house to nothing. You're just adding some new flavor because you know better, you do better, and you have more sophisticated ways to do things, right? That's really it. And that can look totally different. That can feel like a whole remodel, but it's really not. It's just like adding better things. You're making things better. And that's change. That's change. That's elevation. It doesn't mean you have to change every single part of it. So I really encourage you. I hear this all the time, especially I've been talking about biz remodeling a lot. You don't need to burn everything to the ground. You probably have more of a foundation than you think. And if you don't, my friend, we got so much coming, helping you in the next few months. I'm going to read a really short snippet from my journal that I did the last few days, that I've taken the last few days. So, here it is. So 2021 was the year of experimentation. 2022 was the year of discovery. 2023 is the year of coming back home. And 2024 is the year of expansion. And I know I'm predicting the future, but I have no doubt. I think expansion for us in many ways. I'm hoping that's when we deliver a child, maybe this year, who knows? We'll see what happens. And also in opportunities, because we're settling back to our roots, what we know, what we're really great at, what we should be doing, what we should have been doing the whole time. Right. But I say that with an asterisk, because I really, again, I believe that you are led on a journey for a reason, and you're supposed to try things and say what sticks, what doesn't, right? It's all a road. It's all a windy road. Okay. So something I wrote down was, this is the year that we come back home. We reestablish roots, have a baby. I'm putting that out everywhere when I'm writing. Get solidity, sustainability, and predictability again. This is the year we share our story in our life, and we really keep stepping into that authenticity that we've been making such a pillar. The more I say the year of going back home or coming back home, the more right it feels. I needed to change things, but not everything, which is why I'm such a fan of not burning everything to the ground. A lot of the time there's beautiful foundation that can be used, not thrown away. Foundation you spent a long time building, that you built when you were so innocently excited from a place of wonder, hope, and pure passion, before the money, before the pressure, before all the other stuff came into play. A foundation that was built on pure love that you can rebuild upon again. It is 100% possible. This year feels like going back to that foundation, going back to the things that worked, that I got away from, that I thought I shouldn't do anymore, that I got distracted from, that I thought I was better than, that I thought I was too advanced for. Going back home, baby. And I could not be more excited. But it's like when you go back home and you're older, you can see things differently. You look at the house, the furniture, the people through different lenses, both with compassion for certain things that you judged, and also judgment for certain things that you didn't really see clearly at the time, and you didn't realize was maybe wrong at the time. It's going back home with more experience and life under your belt. You know what to take with you and what to leave behind, because it's just, what do I say here? It's just, my handwriting is horrible. It's just something and won't serve you anymore. What is that word? Something, because it's just something and won't serve you anymore. Gosh, Megan, you need to write better. But there are some things that you never should have left, that you can just shine off, give a new paint job, and call it brand new, even though it's really just a cleaned up version of the old. That's what so much of this is. And I wanted to share this with you because, again, I had this conversation with a past client. I had this conversation with a friend. I've had it with a few people. And I'm like, if we're all having this conversation, I know there's people out there. And my last thing I will leave you with is, there is such power in putting your blinders on. There is such power in following your gut and not getting distracted by shiny things, the shiny object syndrome. And when I had my most growth and I felt so aligned in so many ways, I had my blinders on. I really did. And I really encourage you to support your people, support your friends. Of course, opt into things you want to, listen to the podcast. We're going to be putting out a lot of great stuff, like I said. But even with me, or people that you like to listen to and things like that, I still want you to put your blinders on. I want you to realize that you have more of the answer in you than you think, and you don't need to rely on other people to tell you what to do all the time. And I need to be reminded of that. And I know that you've got it. And this is going to be your year. And I have a feeling that you might be coming back home. in a beautiful way too. So I hope this helped. I love you. Thank you for being here. I'm so pumped about everything we've got coming for you. The podcast is just going to continue to be, of course, our number one. We got some really amazing couples conversations on podcast interviews on deck. Like, oh my gosh, you're going to adore these couples, like just amazing stories, some awkward time interviews. And of course, these heart to hearts will continue to be probably my favorite to record because I just love talking to you. And I feel like I'm just chatting with one of my best friends and I'm having some coffee. So I love you, my friends. Take a second, share this episode. It would mean the world to me if you just took literally a minute, shared it on Instagram, tagged at The Pretty Awkward Entrepreneur. It's The Pretty Awkward Entrepreneur. We have a new account, and at Megan Yelaney, and just share what you loved about it. What was one thing? And I will promise to have a conversation with you about it. Thank you for sharing. And I will see you in the next episode.